Hey, and welcome back to Best Practice and the Kobi Simmat audio experience. We're coming to you on, where are we? We're on iTunes, Google Cast, Spotify, sometimes on YouTube. We're all over the place. If you haven't followed me yet on LinkedIn, check out @Kobi Simmat on LinkedIn. These are the guys here in the studio with me right now that make me look really good. I'm going to stop playing with that camera lens and get right into it. This is the second episode, I think, where we're talking to, let's call you guys millennials, graduates, new entrants to the workforce about what my opinion, and this is all my opinion, is on how they can grow and develop in their careers. So they've got a bunch of questions. These are the guys that help us with all the great content that we produce for you guys here at Best Practice. Hopefully it's helping you. If it is helping you, if you're on Instagram watching this live, give us a like, give us a shout out, give us a comment and say, hey, thanks very much. If you've got a question, if you're watching live on Instagram, ask the question and we'll get Vanessa and Ellie to check those out and shout those out as well. Okay, so how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, good.
Good. So did we learn something in the last session that we did together?
A lot.
Yeah. So give me some feedback on what your two takeaways were, one each from the last session.
The biggest thing was in terms of gaining experience, the best way to sort of do it is try lots of different things, and then later on you can sort of see what you liked the best, see what you're best at, instead of jumping straight into like a specialized path.
Okay. And if you want to grab the mic, what about for you?
For me, it was definitely market research. Just really not, what you think is best, but really see how you can add value for the customer and really think only about what they want. Even with social media, but also with selling products, just everything is about the customer in the end. So
absolutely
huge.
Awesome, fantastic. Okay, so you got some questions for me today. Let's get into those.
All right. How do you know whose advice you should trust and follow?
Oh, that's a good one. Look, I think that that is something that's going to come with time and experience. But one thing that, university students maybe have over people who haven't yet been through that tertiary training system. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go to college, but there is a unique skill that's taught at university when you're in the vicinity of lecturers and doctorates and those sorts of people, which is the concept of establishing a null hypothesis. So a null hypothesis is about having a theory and saying we're going to disprove that theory. So a university study or a scientific study will come at something and say we think something is the way it is, but we're going to work really hard to disprove it and prove it wrong. So your hypothesis or your null hypothesis. So I guess from a scientific standpoint, if you can be critical about everything that everybody is saying and don't tear it apart and say you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm not going to listen to you, really think about the advice that you're specifically looking for and look for 2 or 3 sources of truth. So rather than taking specifically one person's advice, maybe start to look at, say for example, if you do a Google search, and please go ahead and write notes there. If you're doing a Google search or if you're listening to people, lean into a couple. So you guys know that I read hundreds and hundreds of books. What I'm starting to see from the hundreds of books that I've been reading, particularly recently and getting, really ramping up in that space, is that I'm seeing consistent messages. And I'm even starting to see from a lot of our social media activity, I'm seeing people saying similar things to us. That's a signal when you see people saying similar things from a number of different sources that it's more likely to be correct. But again, it comes back to your context. So I guess, tip number 1, start with being professionally critical, not critical as you can be harsh and critical and mean to somebody, but it's about being a critic. And in terms of being a critic, then that will help that person to either work harder to, be consistent with the message that they're trying to send you. Either it's something that you're reading or it's somebody that you're speaking to. So starting by being maybe a little bit critical, maybe a little bit skeptical, and that's a really good lens and filter, not just take everybody's opinion. I think the second thing is to start to look at, seek advice. So it's about who you seek advice from. Start to look to people that have done it or doing it. And so, it's like opening the bonnet of a car and looking at the engine for people in organizations that and this is the context of what we're talking about here is work, is to say, has that person done it before? And so you wouldn't take marriage advice over like a 25-year-old single male, for example, because they've got no idea. But you might say, you might go to like my parents, they've been married for 30-something years, 50 years, I think it's getting close to, because I'm 45. So you want to go and look at them. You might say, okay, well, how do you have a great relationship over a long period of time, for example? So that's just a really good case study. So then say someone from a marketing perspective, you want to go get marketing advice from somebody who's doing marketing, like what we're doing here, I'm showing you, like you're seeing it happening. I don't know all the answers. We're figuring it out and constantly in these cycles of improvement. 1,200 social media posts last week. Congratulations to you guys. And what did we learn from that? We learn a huge amount. There's lots of people like, I'm just going to post once a day. Well, that's 365 posts in a year. We're going to learn from doing 3 times as many posts in a week that people do in a whole year than people do in a whole year. So we're like, by the end of 1 week, we're 3 years ahead of a lot of people in terms of their social media activity. So we're learning how the things work. How's that playing out? We're working on that, as we go. So I can't say someone's going to say, show me where that turned into money. I can't show you that yet. I will be able to because I can see it and feel it starting to happen, but we'll come through. So tip number 1, be a little bit skeptical. Tip number 2, try to ask for the advice from someone who's done it before. There's not many things on this planet that haven't been done before. So it's really about looking more broadly at that, particularly getting mentoring from people in books. So if someone's taken the time to write, one of these great books that we read, particularly The Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss is a great book as a starting point. That'd be book recommendation number 1. So that's something that I want you guys to think about is the people that are doing it and have got more of a longevity of experience.
Okay. How do you sell yourself to potential employers, customers, or partners?
Okay, that's a good one. Partners. Business partners?
Yeah.
All right, not partners.
Yeah,
not partners on a Friday night. Okay. I'm not up to date on that. Look, I think the first thing that you have to think about, and I've said this before, the principle of when value exceeds price, cash flows. So the first rule of how you sell yourself to an employer, to a customer, to a business partner, to a prospect is to understand from their perspective what they value, and then gear yourself around that value and then communicate that value. If you can effectively demonstrate that you have the value and communicate so that person hears it, sees it, feels it, then that's going to be a closed deal. Like it's going to be a deal that you win. So you really want to be thinking about what do they value. So like if you want to ask me that question, what do I value? I value people's ability to quickly figure things out without the anxiety of starting. So it's like just start and get into it and figure it out. Like this guy comes in for a week's worth of work experience and all of a sudden by the end of the week he's figured out and got us live with 10 podcasts. He's gone and bought the microphones, he's bought the gear, we've improved our studio straight away. He's like, can I buy this stuff? I'm like, yes, go buy it. What's the budget? There's no budget, just get what you need. So he goes and researches and finds the best microphones. That's what you guys see right now. He's got the software, he's got the gear that runs the back of the podcast for getting good quality audio recording so our customers have a good experience. So I value that. I really value that. There are some roles in this organization where I'll value someone can show me they've done it before, so I'm not paying them to make mistakes. So there's a delicate balance. Like as a business owner, you've got to make a judgment call. I need some people that have got experience. I need to pay a little bit more money for those people, and then I need some people who can figure stuff out because it's less critical or the information doesn't exist. Like what we're doing here with some of the social media stuff has never been done before. Like we're figuring it out. We've spent the morning mucking around with TikTok. That's never been done before. There's no other businesses that we could go on and copy. At the moment, it is about being. I've said, best is better, but on TikTok, different is better because there's nothing else to beat right now. And so eventually we'll say if we can inspire more people to come in and compete with us, then we'll have a benchmark about where we need to go. So selling is really about, first and foremost, understanding the problem that they seek to solve, then showing that you've got the solution to that problem, and then elevating what they value in terms of communicating. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent.
And then stemming off of that, what is sort of the best way to improve and broaden soft skills such as problem solving and communication and critical thinking?
Okay, so I would call those, in my world, I would call those hard skills. Soft skills we would talk about as things like culture, your contribution to the vibe, if you like. So I think that, and I don't want to answer one of your coming questions because I think I know what's coming, but look, getting experience and like volunteering to do as much as you possibly can and being like on the front foot. Like you guys are in a really unique place. You haven't got kids, you haven't got massive responsibilities, you haven't got mortgages, you haven't got all that crazy stuff right now. So exactly what you guys are doing internships, I think is excellent, because you can just get in and experience as much as possible. And I did a lot of that, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. I went and did as much as I possibly could. This guy's been doing it as well, with things like, we've been through the Scout Association and some of the activities that opportunities that opens up, just going and finding out stuff. And so that set me up. I've got experience and exposure. So the key word there would be exposure, getting exposed to as much as possible so that you've been in the environment before. That's going to give you that, that opportunity to go forward.
Okay. These are some personal questions.
Yep.
Where do you ultimately want to end up in your career?
Role,
title, income.
Me?
Not my question, but
okay. Where do I want to?
Yeah.
Where do I want to ultimately want to end up in my career?
In terms of your role, title, income, etc.
Okay, that's a really interesting question. I'm not a title person, so I would prefer not to have the title of CEO. But the marketplace says, "Oh, that's the CEO." I'm just Kobi. So if I could end up with the title of Kobi, that'd be my first name, or Kobes, as most of you guys call me, most people know me by. In terms of my role, this is a really interesting thing, right? Because at the beginning of your career, you can ask these questions. You get to my point in the career where, like, I'm really motivated by helping people and seeing the penny drop. And so a role where I'm coaching and mentoring people and helping them to avoid making the mistakes that I've made, so they can make different mistakes, which I will learn from. But also there's some really dumb things that I've done that I think if I had more awareness, I just wouldn't have made those mistakes. That talks to income. I've sacrificed from an income perspective for a very long time by just not being aware. So I probably, if I had my career over again, I probably would have done a few things differently, where there are other high income earning areas which are really interesting. And I think that, people like, work-life balance, you can sort of set yourself an income target, which is going to cover your costs to have your life and your activities and your holidays and investments or whatever. And I think that there are some high income activities that you can do that you guys are smart enough to figure out, which means you can work less. So you can actually work, you could earn, earn a chunk of money, let's say $2,000 in 5 days, or you could earn $2,000 in 1 day and then do your hobbies. And people are like, I want to do what I really love doing. So you sort of got to figure that out. And I think that I probably could have earned a lot more money by doing different things if I had been aware. And so when a work experience student comes in here or an intern comes in here, I ask them to look out the window and look at all the different organizations out there and think about all the different things people can do. So I'm not answering your question. Role, helping and mentoring people, continuing to help organizations to grow, continuing to help organizations avoid, a crash, if you like, and so they survive and succeed. A title, happy with my name. I don't need a job title. From an income perspective, I want to provide for my family, but also I want my 8-year-old son to be providing for himself. So from an income perspective, I don't have a specific target. I take all of the income that I earn and invest it back into other projects. All right. So, there'll be an occasional holiday here and there, but I'm not stacking money away for any particular purpose. All of my income goes to paying off, property investments that I have, or business investments that I have, or business projects I've got going, every single cent. If I had more cash flow, so my word wouldn't be income, my words would be cash flow. So cash flow targets, if I could 10x my cash flow and then 10x it again, I can do a heap more to help people. So that's probably where I'm thinking in terms of what I want to do from an income perspective. What does that look like? If we 10x this business and then 10x it again, that'll be a couple of $100 million that gives me cash flow to be able to do philanthropic activities, projects I want to work on, environmental projects, and more of what we're already doing.
All right, awesome. What was the process you used to find your why?
My why is actually up there on the top shelf, which is unleash potential. So that's my personal why as opposed to the business why. The business has got, inspire improvement in 100 million companies. Mine's unleash potential. It was a very specific process that I went through with a guy by the name of Glenn Campbell. It's called, I think it's best self-identity, I think he calls it. Back then it was about developing a personal brand. We went through a process where we did a bit of discovery, we read some books, we did some activities together, did some, one-on-one 4-hour workshops to come up with a purpose, which is to unleash true potential. And that's part of what I'm doing with you guys. Like I'm trying to ask you questions and get what your potential is out of you. The benefit is that you guys will have an amazing life. I'll have an amazing life. You'll have an amazing life. So if we can pull people's potential out of them, that's what the benefit is. There's some core values up there that support my why, which is my values of family first. Yeah. And, best practice is my extended family, fun, passion, and adventure. So they're my values, if you like. My personality is about being, it's confident, positive, charismatic, resourceful, and a risk taker. What we're doing on TikTok is a risk. What we're doing here right now is a risk. So that was the process where Glenn and I went through and came up with what you see up there. No, that was only about 5 years ago. Okay. So why has really only been a thing about the last 4 or 5 years. Prior to that, you just sort of got in and did stuff. Like business in the 80s was all about just trying to be clever and find things that you were unique. In the 90s, it was all about muscle. In the 2000s, it was all about hyper productivity. Yeah. And now, as we move into the 2020 and onwards, it's all about heart.
How would you recommend us to find our why right now?
There's a great process you can go through with Simon Sinek. So I would start by Start with Why, the book. Oh, okay. And then there's a book, Find Your Why. Yeah. His second book that comes after that is Find Your Why. There is a couple of different people you can lean into. I can do an exercise with you, which is ask 7 whys. So, I can ask you, we've sort of touched on it, but you need to do it in a safe space, which is ask 7 whys, which is, I'll ask you, what's important to you? Why is that? Yeah. Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? And that'll become quite a deep experience for you. So the process to find your why is about doing that deep investigation about what drives you, what's important to you. Brendan Bouchard does a really good thing on Find Your Why. Tony Robbins does a good thing on Find Your Why. Dean Graziosi, The Millionaire Success Habits, has a great process on Find Your Why. There's 3 or 4 books or 5 books that are all very similar processes that you can go through.
What is something you thought was important early in your career but has turned out not to be?
What is something that was important early in my career?
It seemed important, but it's...
Expensive suits were important. Clean, tidy corporate business attire, and you would go and buy suits and outfits and make sure that you're all dressed. And particularly here in this country, in Australia, today I'm in Levi's, Converse and a t-shirt. So that's not for all of the time, and you got to dress appropriately, but there is definitely something that was really important, was how you were dressed, what brands you wore, things like, and there's still a pocket of that exists in business. What car you drove, all that sort of stuff. Where you lived. I think generically that's starting to change. Certainly your generation doesn't maybe care as much about that as people used to, but certainly when I started in business, where you lived, status, absolutely, particularly the school you went to. That's less and less as we have a global traveling culture. Mm-hmm. People don't give a shit about that stuff anymore, and if they do, they're pretty shallow.
Okay, that's a good one.
Culture is a hot topic and has been for a while.
Yep.
Looking back on the last couple of years, what have you done to tweak the culture in your organisation, and what are the red flags you've seen that's led to a poor work culture?
Okay, so my first comment about culture is I am 100% responsible for it. So what have I done in the last 4 or 5 years? The first thing I've done is take 100% responsibility for it. The second thing I've done is a shitload of personal development, acknowledging that the leader sets the tone. And so 5 years ago, I was saying in some of our videos, the leader sets the tone, leader sets the tone. If I come in the morning and I'm a bit tired, I'm a bit fatigued, and I've got a funny face on, everybody in the office automatically goes, what the fuck did I do wrong? Yeah. And so 5 years ago, I was I could see that. I would come in and people were like, oh, fuck, what have I done wrong? Or stay out of his way. when something might happen. I might have had a car crash, or I got booked one morning because my car was unregistered coming into the office, and I was like fucking shitty at the police person for booking me because I didn't know my car was unregistered. It's a company car and it's managed by our fleet, and everyone's like, oh fuck, I've done something wrong. Like automatically you guys are like, shit, fuck, I've done something wrong. So I think culturally there's that piece there. So the first thing that I'd recommend anybody listening to this, culture starts with you. Culture starts with you. So it starts with me, it starts with you. And it's about our contribution to culture. Culture's what we all do. And the first thing that I'd recommend anybody do is get out of blaming anybody else for how you feel. You make yourself happy, you make yourself sad, you make yourself cranky, you make yourself pissed off, you make yourself upset, you make yourself anxious, you make yourself depressed. Nobody else has control of your feelings unless they're sticking a knife in. Yeah? So pain is the only way that someone, like actually physically touching you. So the first thing that anybody has to do, and I did that here. So in terms of contribution to culture, you have to take 100% responsibility for yourself first. You can't pour from an empty cup. So and running a business is really, really challenging, and you have your ups and your downs. And so when we say about developing our why, focusing on what our mission and vision is, but I can tell you it's fucking hard when there is no money left in the bank, when you've got staff that are really not happy about their role, but they won't fuck off and go somewhere else. You need to move them on. There's things like that can create challenges, but as a business leader, you've got to hit the door coming into the office, and you need to leave your sand at the door. You need to shake all the sand off, literally, and you need to come in and you need to deploy culture how you want culture to be deployed. So those are the little things we've done to tweak it, and then it's just a constant thing on a day-to-day basis.
What is a good way to start networking, both online and in person?
Okay, so if you're looking for business associates, I can't comment on relationships.
Yeah, in terms of business.
But
sorry, didn't clarify that.
Yeah, but what I can say, look, I think the first thing, and I've been saying this to a bunch of people, I'm not sure if you guys have seen my LinkedIn message inbox. Lots of people asking me, I want to get a job, I don't have a job, can you help me? So the first thing in terms of networking is starting with getting experience. So learning things, so for things that you want to learn, reaching out and getting into contact with or getting in the vicinity of people that know the information that you want to learn. If you can figure out your gaps, do your own learning gap analysis, and you can get near those people. If you want to learn about product development, you want to learn about marketing, like what you guys are doing here in terms of marketing, there's nobody on the Northern Beaches, I'd probably almost say Sydney, maybe even Australia, that posts as much as we do on social media, and we don't do it as a business. We're probably posting more than a lot of agencies are doing it. In fact, someone commented that they've got a friend who runs an agency and their packages are like 6 posts a week. We'll do that in 15 minutes. So I think what's important about networking is getting near people, like exactly what you're doing. You've met a bunch of people. You have people that can connect with and be with in a close proximity to for the rest of your career. I think the other thing too is people like us do things like this. So if you've got a particular vision for yourself or a desire or something that you're envisaging that'll be part of the future, is get into that space now. Learn that space now. Be around those people now. Because I think we future pace ourselves. I certainly have future paced myself, which is like, that's what I want for my future. I think the hardest part about that is like, just do it now. Like do a smaller version of it right now. If it's sit and work from home, sit and work from home. Like, we go, it'd be really great. I'm going to be really happy when I get to X. Yeah. So, literally just do it now. Or just unpack exactly what you want to get away from. You want to go to something, but you're trying to get away from something. So, I'm not answering your question about networking. So, networking online, looking for people that are doing things that you're doing. On LinkedIn, you can search people's skills. You can do a skill search. You can search marketing. You can search product development. And maybe follow those people. So that's to be the first thing, and consume the content that they're producing. Hang out in areas that people that do things that you want to do, hang out. Conferences, trade shows, events, locations, courses, panel discussions. Look for business events. We've got this big business summit that's coming up here that we're promoting here as part of Best Practice. Get to that event. You'll meet tons of successful people that are running businesses that want to learn more and want to grow. So I think, you know, something like that from then on the weekends, don't stop because it's Friday. I don't stop because it's Friday. Like, I'm not sure if you guys know that about me. Some of these guys know. I don't stop. Like, there's no Monday to Friday, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to do work on Monday to Friday, and then it stops. I don't stop. I just, Saturday, Sunday, I'm just in a different place, in a different location, but I'm still networking. I'm still talking to people, still meeting people. People love talking about themselves. And so if you can get people talking about themselves, you're going to learn more. So tip number one for networking, whether it's online or offline or face-to-face, human touch, just don't have an elevator pitch about what you do and who you are. Have 3 questions that you can ask anybody. What do you like doing? What do you enjoy most about your job? You know, what's the most memorable work experience that you've ever had? And they'll be like, talk, and you're going to learn. Because you know what you know, you don't know what they know. So tip number one, I think, for networking anywhere would be get yourself 3 really great questions that are a conversation starter.
What suggestions do you have for asking for feedback from peers and bosses?
Ask for it. Hey, I'm really excited to improve. I'm really keen to grow and develop and add a huge amount of value to the people that I'm working with. You know, could you give me any feedback? Can you give me some guidance on how I could improve? Now, I think that's a great way to, you know,
direct.
Just be direct. You know, there's a lot of beating around the bush. I've spent a lot of my career being too subtle. You can be subtle, or you can be direct, and you can be friendly direct. Hey, I'm really excited to improve. I'm really excited to improve. Ask for comments. Ask for feedback. Don't get upset. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. So that's really important that you've asked for the feedback. Some people are scared to ask for it because they're scared of what they're going to get, which is a reality check. It's like looking in the mirror when you're naked. It's like everybody hates themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's pretty straightforward. That's what's going to happen because you don't have that mirror, so you're putting the mirror up and, okay, off we go.
Right.
If you could learn any new professional skill, it doesn't have to be related to your current role or industry, what would it be?
Me personally, personal question.
Yeah, it's
any professional skill that... Look, I think I've got 3 rules in life. One is to meet lots of people, try and meet somebody new every day, learn a new skill all of the time, and get out and have experiences. So I think if you were to say, if I said you can have a dinner party at this table with 8 people, who would you choose?
This is a question for us.
Yeah. If we had a dinner party at this table and you could choose 8 people, who would you like to have dinner with?
Oh God, exactly. Well, Tony Robbins.
Yep.
Bob Proctor.
Yep.
A lot of people I read are dead.
That's okay. They can be dead.
Okay. Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
Earl Nightingale.
Mm-hmm.
How many have I?
What about you?
I mean, I don't really know too many names.
Who would you like to have dinner with?
Yeah.
You know hundreds of thousands of
I'm
people.
thinking.
What about people you follow on Instagram? Maybe?
I'm trying to think.
Oh,
Probably it'd be like musicians and artists that I like.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. What is it about them that you like?
I think I like the fact that they're doing something that they love and then they're inspiring so many people and then they're having fun, like always.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
Working hard and having fun,
They're doing something they love doing, which means they enjoy it, so they look like they're having fun. You know, I've seen guys jumping on and off garbage trucks that are running down the street. They're super fit. They're having fun picking up garbage. Like, they enjoy doing that, like picking up trash. So that's something, sorry, Luke, that's something that, that you know, is to think about. So let's just go back to the question, make sure I'm answering it properly, which was, a skill.
Yeah.
New skill. So about that new skill, it's about doing things that are different people find interesting. So don't go and do things that are the same as other people. So if I was going to learn a skill, I would look at all of my friends and I would go find something different.
We'll be talking about business a lot, but how does your work-life balance look like? I mean...
Okay, so I call it the suitable intermingling of work and life. I don't have like work-life balance because that's like work and then life. I just make sure they're all together. So that's part of this challenge of doing something that you really love doing. You just do it all of the time.
Yeah.
So I'm basically doing best practice from when I wake up in the morning. Like if I just talk about this morning, I woke up this morning at 4:30. I was out of bed at 5 o'clock. I was at the yoga and I did a bit of social media stuff. I was at the yoga studio at 6 o'clock. Yoga class goes for an hour and a half. I'm out of that, picking up some groceries with the family, sitting having breakfast with the family, having a quick shower, jumping in the car, on a sales call on the way to the office, walk in the office, check in on some marketing stuff, sit down with you guys, have a 2-hour meeting. So for me, that's just my life. Like, and I enjoy doing it, and I have a lot of fun. There's things I don't like doing. I don't like doing payroll, and so I hire people to do the payroll, as an example. So the system stuff, Woodsy's down there doing fiddling with software and a database and doing crazy stuff, if he's even paying attention. You know, Caitlin is there behind us managing leads and looking at what's going on from a sales process perspective. I'm sitting in here in a studio where I'm comfortable in front of cameras doing that sort of stuff. So so I think that's something for you guys to consider, where work-life balance might be, actually, my job is a real big grind, but you can do things that are high earning, high income potential, for example, and then we can go out into other areas that are a bit of a hobby, or we can blend the two together. If you can work out high income and you love doing it, you know, that's great. What I can say about making money is when you actually make money and you're putting it in the bank, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, you know, when you're doing shit for free and you're not making any money, it's a grind.
Okay. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success.
Because you said it will take 20 years to be successful. So
so what people perceive as success, which is your business is blowing up, you've got the house, you've got the cars, you've got the boat, you've got the friends, you've got the whatever's going on. For 95 to 98% of people, that takes 20 years.
But is that your definition of success?
That's not my definition of success. My definition of success is making a positive impact on people on the planet and helping them solve problems. That's my definition, and that they'll come to me because what I do helps them. That's my definition of success.
That's why I was confused last time. You said it will take 20 years, and I was just like, I think we have a different
absolutely. And I thought about that. If you go from zero property to property, or zero to success from my perspective, you know, the big house, if you like, that took me 10 years.
But that's not necessarily success.
Correct. That's exactly
I think
right.
that you're successful the minute you start working towards like a worthy goal, even though you're not there yet. I feel like really successful. There's
definitely generationally, there's definitely a definition change happening right now of what success is. When I started my career, I went through college, university, with a picture of a big boat behind my computer. That's my goal. You know, and you're driven by that material, thing. But then as maybe it was about when I turned 40, I went, no, hang on a minute. It's actually about an emotional experience that I'm going to have on the boat, not the boat itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's, we didn't talk about that stuff 20 years ago. You started, or 30 years ago, talking about it now.
If you could start all over again, what would you do differently?
Probably sell real estate. I like houses. I like renovating houses. That's one of my skills. What I would do differently, they talk about people that go bankrupt and then start up and bankrupt and start up. And each time they get faster and faster and faster, like Elon Musk as an example. I think there's stats out there. I think he's been broke 3 times. You get better each time. So if I was to wipe the slate clean and start again, I'd do things very differently. Starting with culture and people. And I wish I could say this is the book to read about culture, or this is how you hire people, or I think that's just something that you can't buy. I think that's experience that you have to get, and you want to try and work with as many people as possible and see the positives and negatives, but also listen. When someone tells you you're on a good thing, then probably stay on the good thing. Like, listen to that person because they're seeing something, because most people will typically be negative. But if someone comes through and cuts through in your message and goes, they do what you do because you're on a good thing, lean into that and try and understand that context. And that's probably where I nod people going, no, you're fucking wrong, I'm going to go and do this, and it was a disaster.
Relevant.
Okay, now we've been talking, you've got written down questions. What other questions come to mind?
What other questions come to mind? Well, I remember last week you said something about 2% of the businesses actually make it, and there's like a really high percentage of divorces and people getting depressed and stuff like that. What are your tips on that? Like, how can you make sure that you still prioritize? And
so the business statistics are half of 1% of businesses. Half of 1% of businesses that start deliver their financial promise by the 10-year mark. half of 1.
Yeah.
So that's 0.5%.
Yeah, 0.5%.
39.5% of businesses live a daily struggle. 60% fail in the first 3 years. And that's of businesses that start. So if you're somebody who started a business and you're inside 3 years, your statistics are stacked against you for the business basically stopping. Now, it might not be the monumental failure. It might not be bankruptcy and, you know, not paying suppliers and all that disaster, but it could be if you haven't managed your cash flow. So, sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah, so that happens a lot. But then next to that, a lot of people, you know, get really depressed, divorced. I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah, so I think my tips are, there's a really great book that I recommend to everybody. It's disappeared from the studio, which is the 5 languages of affirmation in the workplace, or the 5 love languages. So, you know, with the people that you work with and also the people that are in your household, like your family and friends, I think it's important to understand, you know, a bit of emotional intelligence around and self-awareness with the people that you're around, because you can deploy, you know, you can lean on your friends. And so, you know, starting by projecting love and projecting happiness and projecting friendliness is probably the first place to start, because you'll add value to people's lives. I'll give you an example. You're walking up the street and you're looking ahead and you see someone coming towards you, and you can see that they're crying and you can see they're really upset and their eyes are red and their shoulders are down and they're sort of leant over and they're sort of walking slowly, and you can see that they're really, really, really sad. Can you already feel yourself like deploying empathy to that person and starting to feel sad? I just made somebody up. So if you see somebody walking down the street and they're happy and they're bubbly and they're smiling and they're bouncing and their hair's done and they're in a great outfit and they're looking absolutely amazing, you can see they've got a spring in their step, you can see they're happy. Now, how's that make you feel?
Happy.
Happy.
For them,
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what's really important is for you to deploy that all of the time, because if somebody's sad, the best thing for you to be is happy. Because of the energy. Like, I'm just telling a story and you can picture it already and you can actually feel that happiness that I just described. So Brendan Burchard talks about this a lot, which is about putting up an enormous radar around you and just projecting as much positive energy as possible to people, because that'll be the force field. Because what's going to happen is your positive energy is going to go and we talk about positive energy, like negative and positive people. Your positive energy is literally a thing. And it's going to
positivity as well.
Exactly right. And it's going to resonate so far that you've got a better chance of making the person feel less sad. Don't let them rub off on you. Like, I'm not going to let you determine how I feel. I get you sad. I can see you sad. You might tone it down a little bit, but I'm not going to change how I feel because you're sad. I'm going to try and cheer you up.
And even when things are tough with your business and stuff, you have to always stay positive and just reading books and meditate and
that's
that kind
exactly
of stuff.
Right. Now, for me, it's about not being attached to material things. Yeah, cool. I've got a great car. I've got a beautiful classic boat. You know, those are they're all projects that I've got going on right now. You know, and restoring things, but I'm not attached to it. My family's really important to me. Yes, I would mourn the loss of my family, but I'm not going to mourn the loss of material possessions. I would be happy, probably happier than I currently am, to sleep in a tent every night because I'd be camping and I love camping. So it's, you know, I'm not happy unless I'm in a 5-star hotel, or I'm not happy unless I'm driving a special car or particular possessions. So I think that's, you know, my piece of advice to people, because sometimes I cross paths with people that are driven to start businesses because they want the house and the car and the beachside home and the holidays and all that stuff that's being projected, not considering how they're going to feel. And you can actually put yourself into paradise. There's plenty of places around the world that you can go that are paradise, that are free, that you don't need to be in the 5-star hotel.
No, 100%. But since you're talking, like, you're doing yoga, you're meditating, you're just talking about energy. What are your thoughts on spirituality and business and just...
For me, it's about energy. So I'm not a religious person. I was brought up in an Anglican Christian house. I've been christened. My dad was a Sunday school teacher, but I don't, you know, do I think there's a higher energy source? Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, there's nothing to do with religion, but yes.
It's nothing to do with religion. You know, I get in trouble for being critical because I talk about religion like who's got the best imaginary friend. And I get in trouble for that all of the time. But it's true. You know, I subscribe to the Big Bang Theory, if you like, because I'm a scientist. Yes, I get religion, but if you actually lean into religion and we'll talk about spirituality in a second, at points in time, society needed controls. At the moment, it's all about laws. But if you go back a couple of thousand years, churches set the laws,
to control
and now
people.
it's governments set the laws.
Yeah.
You know, and the rules of living. You know, don't have sex with your family. You know, that shit like that. You know, it's because why is that? Because it causes birth defects.
Yeah.
Don't crap in the Nile. Why? Because the next village down there drinks it and it makes them sick. So, but if we go back to spirituality, I'm an absolute believer in positive energy, putting positive energy out to the universe.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to track the ROI.
Yeah.
Like, I did this thing and there's my ROI and I know if I do
Always
that
come
thing,
back.
you know,
Yeah.
that is old school, immature marketing mentality. Spend result. That's where ROI comes from. Spend result.
Yeah. return
So in terms of thinking about spirituality in business, does business have an energy? Absolutely. That's the signal of the culture. So do I subscribe to it? Yes. Do I know that my positive energy rubs off on people? Absolutely. That's why we do this stuff, because people have said it's unethical of you not to deploy the positive energy that you have with people. What's my standard response? How are you going, Kobi? Amazing. With the eyebrows up and the body language. It's literally a thing, because I know that I'm constantly telling you guys, which tells my subconscious, which is like, you know, this is all good.
Yeah.
Do I stress? Of course I do. I worry more about, you know, have I got the money to pay people because they've got a blind spot that they're like, oh shit, I need, you know, salaries, wages, whatever that might be, because they're relying on me.
Yeah.
That's where I get scared. But is it a spirituality thing? Absolutely. All right, so this has been Luke's best practice audio experience. No, it hasn't. It's been the Kobi Simmat audio experience. I think are we still live on Instagram? Any questions on Instagram? No, they're all good. Okay, so if you've got comments or questions, if you're seeing this live from Instagram later on, please hit us with comments and questions. These guys will read it out. We'll try and do this again. Won't be next week because I'll be overseas in London next week for conference and seminar. So when I get back from that, we'll get stuck back into it and we'll do episode 3. So I hope this has been useful for everybody. If you've got comments, if you've got questions, send me messages on LinkedIn. That's the platform to connect with me. And we will see you all soon right here next time on, let's call it bestpractice.biz. See you soon.